Welcome to the latest episode of Real Time Radical, and I'm your host, Karl Sharman. Today we are joined by Jeremy Dalton. Jeremy leads PwC's VR and AR team, helping clients across all sectors understand, quantify and implement the benefits of virtual reality and augmented reality technology. He is a regular contributor of thought leadership in the industry, giving talks all over the world, and he is the co-president of the London chapter of the VR AR Association. So I'd like to welcome Jeremy to the podcast today. It's nice to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about the future of VR and AR for me and you. But we're going to start from the beginning of your story. So where was you born?
I was born in London.
Excellent. And who are or were your parents?
My parents were actually, my father was born in Malaysia during World War II. My mother was born in Saudi Arabia.
That's very different. That's very different. And then you're born here.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
How did that happen? Did they both move here?
Yeah. So my father met my mother in Egypt. And,
okay. Another country.
Another country. We'll just add another one to the list there. And they eventually went back to the UK. But that's not the end of the story. There are many more countries to come.
I'm sure. So where did you grow up? Was it in London?
I didn't really grow up in London. I was in London until I was about 2 years old, and then I actually moved to Dubai, where I spent most of my life, in fact.
Wow. And was you educated in Dubai?
Yeah, I was brought up in Dubai. I went to a Lebanese school there, Lebanese international school, and so I spent the majority of my early days in Dubai.
Okay. And why did you live in Dubai?
My father got a job out there. He was in the engineering world and the marine world.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially what year was that?
That was, from memory, 1991 to 2007, somewhere around there.
So what was Dubai like then? Because I can't imagine it's like how it is now with the massive boom.
91, it was literally a desert. If anyone's heard of the Sheikh Zayed Road, the main road that goes through Dubai, if you try and see pictures from that time, it is literally a big highway through the desert with a few small buildings dotted around it sparsely.
Yeah.
But now it's an absolute metropolis of skyscrapers and world-breaking buildings in terms of world record-breaking buildings. The tallest hotel in the world, the tallest building in the world. I think they're going for all the records.
I don't blame them. Why did you... And when was the first time that you returned to the UK?
I returned to the UK in 2007, and that was for university.
And you studied mathematics?
Yes, that's right.
And what was your choice? Why did you choose mathematics?
So it's pretty simple, actually. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I happened to be good at mathematics at high school, so I thought it seems to be a respectable subject. My parents would like me to study a science degree, so I pretty much had the choices of mathematics, physics and chemistry. Wasn't too hot on the physics and chemistry side, so really I only had mathematics left.
Yes.
And went for it.
And from research, and like I said to you, limited research, I found that you're also a secret accountant.
That's right, yes. So I still to this day remain a chartered accountant.
Yes, but you don't use it?
No, not at all. Sadly, my role in virtual reality and augmented reality doesn't call for much of my accounting skill set. Yeah,
so you've been you was an office cadet in the British Army. You've been a teacher, a tutor, a chartered accountant apparently. How did you end up here at PwC?
So again, I wanted to join PwC because it was a very, and still is a very respectable company. I thought they'd be able to provide a great base of training, and I'd be able to get a lot of different experiences, and they pay for me to do a chartered accountancy degree, of course. A lot of different reasons, and I joined the firm, and I had almost as a complex route through the firm as I have done through life in general. Yeah,
and the other thing I read through, like I said, very basic research, and it sort of blew my mind, was that you even provided internet access to a remote village in Ghana.
Yeah, that was a very fun project. It was actually, for anyone who knows, it was in the Kwahu region of Ghana, and I was there to just offer my services and try and do some good in the world. And it was a project that I was quite passionate about, so I didn't mind the idea of teaching, but really what I wanted to do was something to do with technology.
Yes.
And there was this derelict building in the village, and the village was only about 2,000 people. The project coordinator wanted to open up that building and actually bring it back into and make it available as a library. And I said, well, why don't we also add some computers in there? And while we're at it, why don't we also get some internet access in there? And he was, of course, very keen on this. And once with his permission, I just went out and made it happen. And was very excited to welcome the first few visitors into it.
Yes, and how long did that take?
That took from beginning to end about a month and a half, 2 months, something like that.
And did that spark your interest in technology?
No, I'd always had an interest in technology ever since I was young. I still remember Windows 3.1. That was the first Windows-based or laptop I had in general. It was my first interaction with technology, and it just went on from there in terms of exploring the different functionalities, experimenting with technology, trying new things. I've been through a lot of different activities, including, if anyone remembers Internet Relay Chat, IRC. I was playing around with that and scripting different games for that chat room. So I had a lot of different activities throughout the ages.
And so moving on, well, staying on PwC, but moving on to your latest role, which is, and I have to ask how it came about, but when did you first hear about VR and AR?
So I actually tried out virtual reality when I was quite young. So I must have been, I estimate, about 9 or 10 at the time.
Okay.
And I tried out a very early form of virtual reality back in the 90s. And that was, by today's standards, quite appalling. But it back then it was inspiring to me. It was absolutely incredible. And I can't say that from then on I had a dream to do virtual reality in my life. I didn't actually. I thought it was very exciting, I thought it was very inspiring, but ultimately I forgot about it. As many people did with virtual reality back in the late 80s, early 90s, going through to the mid and late 90s, of course. But it resurrected itself in 2012 when, as many people have heard, Oculus put their Oculus Rift prototype virtual reality headset on Kickstarter. They asked the audience or the public for $240,000, I think it was, and in return we actually gave Palmer Luckey, the founder of Oculus, $2.5 million to bring that to life. Facebook, 2 years later, bought Oculus for $3 billion, and thus the industry was resurrected again.
Yes. And when you say us, did you put money into that round?
Not in that round, I didn't. No, I put it into later rounds, sadly. So I wasn't there at the first step, sadly.
Yes, of course. But how did the role here come about?
So the role in PwC came about much off my own back because I personally believe in the technology, and I believe that it's going to form a very prevalent part of both our personal and professional lives. And I spoke to a lot of different partners in the firm, banged on a lot of doors, and eventually people started listening, probably because they got fed up of hearing me.
Which isn't a bad thing. I recommend anyone to do that if they want something that badly. Okay, so we've got an idea of how you got here, but I'm sure people still don't understand what is VR and AR and how are they different?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Virtual reality is ultimately all about immersing you in different worlds. Augmented reality is all about keeping you in the real world but providing a visual or virtual overlay of information or objects in your field of view. So virtual reality is about immersion, augmented reality is about information. Augmented reality allows you to contextualize and understand the world around you, whereas virtual reality allows you to go to and experience other worlds and other experiences.
And why does that matter to us?
So from a personal perspective, a lot of the entertainment and media world has a great effect on the entertainment and media world. We at PwC have published a report around entertainment and media in the next 5 years and what it looks like. Virtual reality is actually the highest growth area in the entertainment and media sector according to us. And it also, we expect there to be over 250 million headsets worldwide by 2021.
Really?
Which is, quite amazing. But in terms of your question, why does it matter to us personally as individuals? Virtual reality offers a new way for us to experience things. And by that I mean it could be film, but it could be something more. It could be video gaming. It could be the ability to go back in time and actually experience what it's like to visit the pyramids of Giza, let's say. You could also use virtual reality for a number of different ideas. So in the personal space, imagine where you want to go to a live event, a concert, a sports match, something like that. Currently, a lot of the issues are that there's limited supply of seats. And the only alternative to that is you watch it on TV or you watch it on some screen, whether it's your mobile, your laptop or your TV screen. Now, the alternative is virtual reality in the middle here, where effectively you occupy perhaps even a front row seat at a sports match. You're able to physically look around, with your own head. You're turning around, you're looking at the audience, you're looking at the match, and this is you're in that environment. You're not a third-party spectator looking from the outside as you are normally with broadcast television, and that is quite significant because it's changing the game all of a sudden. You feel immersed, you feel like you're part of that environment. And that will be very special, especially as we start to solve some of the challenges of virtual reality and really make it a consumer product.
So, with that, so you just said that's where it's going, or where it's certainly on the journey of. But where is it currently? Where's the technology being used? What does the industry look like right now?
So on the consumer side, in virtual reality, there's a lot of money that's going into the video gaming side of things and the entertainment side of things. So I mentioned the live sports as an example, and I've actually watched in virtual reality a live sports event. So it's possible right now, and there are a number of companies that are doing that, but there are still a few challenges to solve to make it a better experience and one that's more suitable for the mainstream public. That's the consumer side of the market in virtual reality. When it comes to the business side in virtual reality, there are a number of different applications, but one significant one is actually training. So being able to take someone, an engineer let's say, who would otherwise have to travel physically to a site that's been specially prepared and then run his or her training scenario and then go back to base and then multiply that by 1,000, 10,000 or 100,000 engineers in your workforce. And you can see that the model suddenly doesn't become very scalable, but with virtual reality it does. Because once you've built that training scenario in virtual reality, you can have any number of engineers anywhere in the world at the same time working on that training scenario in the virtual world. So quite a lot of incredible efficiencies, cost savings for business there, saved on transportation, all these sort of benefits that come with it.
How do you know if it's right for your business though?
So ultimately you've got to think about what are the business benefits of virtual reality generally, where has it been used, where could it be used for your specific industry, and following on from that conversation you can start to build out a possible number of different solutions. Each of those solutions can then be explored further to understand where, how they could make money, what's the return on investment, what's the real business value basically that comes from it. And once you've answered those questions, then it becomes clear how useful it is to your business.
So you're basically saying that it can be cost saving and it can be profitable to businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. It can offer a number of cost savings, it can offer a number of efficiencies as well. So if I think about the augmented reality side of things, there are a number of companies that are looking at how they can make current processes more efficient through the use of augmented reality glasses or headsets. So there is an example you can find on the internet. DHL and Ricoh did a prototype for warehouse operators, and they found that it was 25% more efficient when they used the augmented reality prototype to allow warehouse operators to scan through packages and understand what to do with them following that. And there are a number of examples throughout different industries with similar results to that.
And there'll be so many people that are so passionate about this, like yourself. But how do people, with this becoming a new industry, like we've talked about cybersecurity, very similar, that's becoming very mainstream, like VR and AR. But how do people get into this industry? Where are the potential jobs, or where are the current jobs?
So you've got to think about where your value lies. At PwC we have a model, it's called BXT, stands for Business, Experience and Technology. Ultimately, in virtual reality, you can also use that model to describe the different roles available in the VR/AR industry. So on the business side, understanding what is the business value, the strategic pieces of virtual reality, augmented reality, where that technology fits in the business and how it can be deployed locally or internationally. Then you've got experience. These are people like user experience design artists, you've got graphic designers, you've got people who specialize perhaps in animation and 3D modeling, everything to do with the creative side of things. And then you've got technology. So on the technology side, it's generally developers, people who can actually build these worlds and piece it all together. Once you understand where your value lies in those three spheres, that's when you can apply that understanding to the VR/AR industry, because all of those three are in demand. But most particular, I will say, on the experience and technology side at the moment.
Yeah, I can understand that. So what is your role like? You touched on it briefly, but what does, for example, a typical day look like for you?
Typical day for me...
It doesn't exist.
I know, but I'm trying to avoid you saying that cliche. So, I'll give you an example. I could be out on a client site, demonstrating virtual reality and expressing to them how VR and AR is being used in industry right now, how it could be used for them to help with their business.
Yes.
I could be back here at PwC to look at the latest virtual reality build from a project that we're working on right now. I could be talking to my team about developing the latest VR/AR strategy decks relating to different industries, the retail and consumer market, energy, utilities and mining, pharma, all of these sorts of businesses. And that would probably, that would cover quite a bit. And of course, meeting with other people in the industry is very important. I try to meet with people regularly who are interested in virtual reality and augmented reality, who are currently involved in the industry. Maybe they're running a company in the UK. I'm very keen on UK-based VR/AR companies. I think we have a lot of potential here. And in fact, I'll mention we're running an event, and maybe it will be finished by the time we run this, but the theme is Great British VR. Because I think we have a lot of potential here in the UK for VR/AR companies, and in fact we've identified over 500 of those companies here in the UK.
That's amazing. That's amazing. There is a lot of hype in this market, and I think that's always because people don't really understand it. They're words that people love to say they have some sort of experience in. That happens in any industry. But what really is the future? Will this technology become mainstream?
So there is a lot of hype, first of all, because as you say, like, people don't necessarily understand the full potential of the technology. Maybe they haven't even tried it, but they've heard of it and they've made assumptions based on it. The other reason is there's generally a lot of impatience these days about technologies.
Very true.
If they don't become mainstream in a year or two, then it's deemed failed.
Yes.
And that's simply not true as well. If you look back since 2014, I've got clippings from newspapers that basically specify the headline: is 2014 going to be the year of VR? Is 2015 going to be the year of VR? Is 2016? Is 2017? And I guarantee you we're going to see the same clippings in 2018, 2019 and 2020 as well. The point is, this technology has been around for a long time, yes, but in its current state, it's only been around for a few years. So a lot of progress has been made in those few years, but ultimately what we're talking about is changing culturally and technologically the way people work and the way people do things, and the way people train, the way people meet, the way people understand the world. And this is going to take more than a few years to integrate into mainstream society. So the only thing I would advise is a lot of patience. And to actually answer your question at the beginning, I personally believe 100% that VR/AR is going to form an incredibly important part of both our personal lives and our professional lives in the future. But it's not only me that's saying that. If you look at third parties like Gartner, they have a theory called the hype cycle. That tries to explain the maturity of emerging technologies. Now, in their latest 2017 hype cycle, they've stated that virtual reality they see as becoming mainstream in 2 to 5 years' time. So you have a third-party point of view as well, and there are many others who will show a similar tune when it comes to that.
Now, I've tried different VR experiences through different VR companies that I've either worked with or know, and I think there's a lot of concerns, and the other side of it is a lot of laughs when you see people online, say on YouTube, funny reactions from people where they're screaming because something's appeared in their VR, headsets or some noises. So can our bodies and minds really cope with what VR brings to us in taking us into that new world?
So you raise an important point. More research needs to be done into the long-term physiological and psychological effects of being embedded in virtual reality environments. So I can only speak anecdotally. Personally, I've been hundreds of hours in virtual reality. I, of course, am surrounded by people who have also been hundreds of hours in virtual reality. No ill effects yet, so far that I can see, anyway. But of course that's not scientific evidence, that's merely my own anecdotal experience. And manufacturers will try and err on the cautious side by recommending short periods of time in VR with regular breaks. And that's understandable as well as we build out more and more research. So I think when people think about those challenges, they've got to bear that in mind, that we should adopt a responsible technology policy when we approach technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality. We should be aware of these potential challenges, but as long as we're raising them, as long as we're moving forward to better understanding them and mitigating those challenges as best we can, I think that's the path that we should aim for.
And where does responsibility sit with that? Is that within organisations? Is that within people like yourself who are industry leaders? Is that with us, the consumers?
I wouldn't want to place the onus on any one of those organisations or people specifically. I think we all have a responsibility when it comes to this technology, in understanding it better, in talking about best practices and guidelines. Academia has a responsibility in doing the research and actually making those findings public. I think we as PwC have a responsibility in informing our clients about the challenges of this technology and helping them to mitigate those. I think consumers have a responsibility to educate themselves about the potential shortcomings of this technology and how to tackle those. So I think it's shared responsibility between all of these stakeholder groups.
And what other areas do people need to be aware of in terms of VR or AR?
When it comes to the challenges?
Yes.
So at the moment, a lot of people are concerned at the price, and this is a consumer issue. So the price of virtual reality, high-end virtual reality, currently sits at about the, let's say, $2,300 mark. So about $1,000 for the headset, $1,300 for a computer that's good enough to run it. This is not mainstream consumer pricing, but it will certainly come down as hardware costs have come down undoubtedly throughout the years. The other area they need to be aware of is user experience of virtual reality. It's not a plug-and-play solution. That is another challenge that needs to be tackled on virtual reality's path to mainstream adoption, and it will be tackled. But right now, as I sit here and talking to you on this podcast, it's not perfect by any means. I'll tell you about my virtual reality setup in my house. I've had to drill a hole through my wall to get the virtual reality wire through to the computer in the bedroom, because that's the only computer that can run it. But the only space I have to walk around is in my living room. So hence the hole between my living room and my bedroom. I've then got to drill holes in the wall to put the base stations up so it can tell where I am as I'm walking through virtual reality. This is not something that consumers are used to doing, and understandably so.
Yes, no, I can, yeah. I'm just trying to imagine, one, what your house currently looks like, and two, when you had to explain that to your wife. Yes.
It was a difficult discussion and a difficult negotiation, I'll add.
Yes.
But having her try it, she's actually been quite happy with the results. So I've been given free rein to drill as many holes as I want through any of these walls now.
Okay.
as long as I can produce those high-end experiences, then everything's fine.
Sounds like a great deal. So, where do you go from here if you want to get into the industry or want to experience the industry as a consumer? What would you say was the next steps?
In terms of job roles, are you thinking?
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say best thing to do is to attend the meetups, the meetup groups locally, and there are many throughout the UK, particularly in London. There are meetups and in fact conferences as well on an almost monthly basis, I'd say, if not more. So there's a lot of opportunity to meet with people from the industry at those events. Additionally, I'd say, LinkedIn is a good source for trying to find people locally. You've got different filters you can apply there, and as well as keeping up to date with the news to be able to talk in a semi-educated way about the industry and what's happening, what the latest progress is. I'd say would be a good starting point.
Is that how you keep up with trends?
I regularly do go to these meetups and these conferences, it's true. I also try and host some events as well. So we run events, I'd say bi-monthly. So yeah, a lot of opportunity to get involved.
Of course. And what about businesses? What next steps should they take if they see this as a field, or maybe they have no clue about where VR and AR can fit into their business?
So I'd say a lot of the companies that we speak to do need a bit of help to understand it, to actually really understand. I don't mean by that we give them a presentation and then they get it. I'm talking about, in addition to presentation and the written materials, actually demoing and showcasing that technology live with them, and for them to experience it firsthand. Because that is a key aspect of virtual reality for anyone out there trying to convince someone about the industry. They've got to experience it firsthand. That's the only way. Otherwise, they will only have an idea of what the technology is about.
Can you try and describe the feeling of trying VR?
Okay, so to describe the feeling of virtual reality, well, I've got a good anecdote for you. I've got two anecdotes for you, which will hopefully bring it to life a bit. The first one is I've put someone on top of a wooden plank which was stretching out from the top of a very high skyscraper, and I asked them to walk the plank. Now, that was in virtual reality. In the real world, they were in a totally safe room with no drops at all, no change in elevation, nothing. And they knew it. They knew there was no danger whatsoever. Yet, when they came to the plank and they stared down at the street below, which was probably 20 or 30 stories below, they did not want to move off that plank. And I had some people refuse to get on the plank in the first place. So it really does dig into that lizard part of your brain and makes you believe that you're in that world. It's very immersive. Second anecdote, I was playing a virtual reality game with a friend. It was to do with cooking and serving hamburgers. So I was outside of virtual reality as the server, and my friend was inside virtual reality cooking the burgers to order, as I was telling him when the customers were coming in. And it was a very exhausting session because he made about 10 or 15 burgers, got some wrong, got some right. By the end of the session, he wanted to take a breather, so he leant his elbow onto the table, but of course it was a virtual table. So it went straight down smack onto the floor. And again, it's about immersion.
Yes.
He lost himself in that world because he truly believed he was in it.
Did you end up in A&E?
No, fortunately. He managed to recover from that one fairly swiftly.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, what would you suggest or recommend other than going to events for someone to be successful in this industry? What have you learned? What have you experienced to be in the position that you're in right now?
So right now, to be successful in the virtual reality or augmented reality industry, it ultimately depends on exactly what your job role is. But if you're talking about from the sense of starting up a company in this space, again, it depends on what sort of company you're starting up, but don't buy too much into the hype, because there is a lot of hype there. Don't expect there to be revenue opportunities just pouring out of everywhere. It's going to be a tough slog, and you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to have some backup funding or plan in place. I know some people who actually run VR/AR projects on the side in addition to a another main line of work or source of income, which helps them as VR/AR projects are a bit dry in some phases. They can pick up the other work, and then when VR/AR projects come in during other phases, they can pick those up and run with them. So the idea is you've got to be patient with the technology, as I mentioned before. It's not going to make you a millionaire, especially not at this stage. A lot of us at the moment are in the industry because we're passionate about it. We want to see it grow. So that is the sort of mindset of a lot of the people here in the industry, and that is, hopefully the mindset that you'll come into as you join the industry as well.
And talking about mindset, what's the biggest piece of advice that you can give anyone that's looking to be successful in life?
My one pearl of wisdom.
Yes.
That would be to seek out uncomfortable experiences. And by that I mean, I started at PwC as an auditor. I then joined business recovery and was involved in a number of very uncomfortable situations with administrations going on in all sorts of different industries. I wanted to try something new, so I changed career again into technology consulting, and then even further than that, I wanted to change again to provide more value, and by following my passion in the virtual reality and augmented reality space. All of those changes required a certain level of discomfort. It was certainly taking me out of my comfort zone. It was not a traditional path in PwC or any of the big four accountancy companies really. So I had to develop the path myself effectively, and that wasn't easy at all, but it was well worth it in the end.
What was your hardest experience then?
My hardest experience.
Time maybe where you wanted to give up.
A time when I wanted to give up. Not being much of a person to give up, to be honest, but actually, okay, no, I've got one for you.
Yeah. I'm going to say we've always one. I don't want to ever give up on anything.
Yeah.
But there is always that point when, and people say, oh no, I don't have this point. But I think I'm pretty mentally strong.
Yes.
And I've come to them points before. So
I have as well, and you've jogged it in my memory.
Yes. Sorry about that.
You may find it surprising, but the accountancy exams I did, the ACA, that was probably the most difficult thing I've done in my life. Now the funny thing is, a lot of people may wonder, well, it was a complete waste of time for you basically, because you're now in virtual reality and you don't use it at all. But I would say completely the opposite. I would say those accountancy exams and them being so hard and so life-changing because they were so difficult and challenging, that has changed me as a person. It's changed my base personality. It's made me more confident, and ultimately I would say, having done those exams and having succeeded in doing them, and the confidence that it's instilled in me as a result of succeeding in that, has probably allowed me to pursue virtual reality and augmented reality. Because without that confidence, I don't think I would have made it to this stage.
Excellent example and excellent answer. Okay, now I didn't really tell you this before we started, but we always do 10 quick-fire questions at the end of every podcast. So feel free to answer wherever your brain allows you to go. So question 1. What turns you on professionally?
Excitement.
What turns you off professionally?
Incompetence.
How do you unwind?
Virtual reality.
I might have to come back to that. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Adventuring.
What activity gives you the most energy?
Activity. Actually, presenting to a very energetic and enthusiastic crowd.
Who is your biggest inspiration?
I don't think I'd point to any one person. If I think of one, I'll come back to you.
Okay. If you had to present a speech right now, what one word would be its subject?
I've got to try and avoid the cliches, right?
That's down to you.
One subject. Challenges.
You are at your best when you're doing what?
When I'm busy.
If today was the last day of your life, what one lesson would you impart?
It was the last day of my life.
Let's hope it's not.
yeah, touch wood, right? Again, I think I'll turn back to seek difficult experiences.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say as the reason He is letting you through them gates?
You seem to have been a good person in life.
Excellent. And there we go. So where can people find you? Where can people get access to what you're saying, what you're doing? And I know that you do a lot of speaking, you do a lot of writing. So yeah, how can people find you?
Yeah, there are quite a few places. You can go to my personal website, jeremydalton.co.uk. You can contact me on LinkedIn, jeremydalton.info. Or you can catch me on Twitter. That's at Jeremy C. Dalton this time. Someone else has taken Jeremy Dalton, sadly.
I'm sure we can change that. So, excellent. I just want to come back to that one question.
Yeah.
Because you said, when I asked you, how do you unwind?
Yeah.
Now, in my head, my VR experiences do not allow me to unwind. My mind is very, and I do a lot of meditation, so my mind becomes very cloudy because I'm sort of wary that I'm in a normal room, like you say, but suddenly I put these glasses on or whatever, different headsets, and I'm in a totally different world, so I'm immersed in that. So when you exactly say it's unwind, I was relaxed, shall we say. So why did you answer with that?
It was quite honestly probably a knee-jerk reaction because I play VR regularly, so I get involved in it regularly. But really, if I wanted to be honest and think about it properly now, I'd probably say watching TV actually.
Yes.
Because it doesn't require too much concentration.
But it's interesting because that's why I say quick fire questions, because you get real answers. So perhaps because you play it so much and you're so passionate about it, that is your hobby. That's how you like to unwind. So yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a wrong answer, but to me, because I've had limited experience in it, there's so much going on and there's so many things to think about that it just doesn't allow me to unwind. But perhaps for someone like yourself who is a regular explorer and adventurer into this market, perhaps that's what it is. So perhaps that's not the wrong answer.
Well, I can tell you I've had some really, really great times playing, for example, Star Trek Bridge Crew with a few friends.
Yes.
Where we've taken on the role of captain, helm, tactical weapons, and engineering.
Yeah.
And just flying through space, causing all sorts of turmoil. It's just absolutely great fun. And is very unwinding.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. So, one question you didn't answer, which was, who is your biggest inspiration? Now, if it doesn't have to be one person, it can be a group of people, it can be more than one person if necessary.
Yeah.
Have you got anyone in mind yet?
I've been thinking about this. I mean, there are some very obvious contenders, people like Elon Musk for continuing to push the boundaries of humanity and doing good in the world in general.
Yeah, he's certainly one of mine.
But to be honest, I also find inspiration in the words of people like Jack Ma. I find what he talks about when it comes to his challenges in life and actually struggling through to get to the position that he's in right now, and the way he does it with such modesty as well. I don't sense a lot of arrogance coming from him, and those are traits that I would like to try and live up to as well.
I find Jack Ma, obviously the founder of Alibaba, the biggest company in mainland China now, one of the biggest in the world, but I find with Jack Ma that he's very under the radar type. He's not, you will see Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, very famous entrepreneurs that are very mainstream. Jack Ma's only become mainstream in the last 6 months, I'd say, maybe a bit longer. And I think that's because he just does such a good job that Alibaba's just become such a big brand that his personal brand hasn't been so much of a focus. And someone like Richard Branson is the total opposite to that. Virgin are strong in certain areas, but other parts of the business has not gone the way I'm sure Richard Branson wanted, and maybe that's because of his personal brand. But Alibaba's a total opposite. There's so many different, people wouldn't even know some of the areas that Alibaba are involved in, but yet Jack Ma is not very well known. He is in China, but not in anywhere else. But yet Alibaba are one of the biggest international companies now. So I think you're certainly right for that to mention him, and I must say no one else has mentioned him on the podcast. So it's,
oh, that's good. Because I couldn't mention Elon Musk alone. I'm sure he's been mentioned many times before.
Of course, he's certainly one of mine for the work that he does as an environmentalist. The amount of work that he's put into that area. Absolutely. In terms of solar power, the new batteries that he's trying to bring out, as well as the electronic cars. And that's before, that's whatever he's done before that. He's done a lot of great projects, and I really call him a tech adventurer, because he just takes on the most ridiculous tasks that a lot of people would like to say they could try, but his work ethic and desire and commitment to make the world a better place is certainly inspirational.
Absolutely.
Well, that leaves me to say thank you for today. It's been a real pleasure.
It was a real pleasure for me, Karl. Thanks a lot for that.